In part 1, we discussed creating groups and adding members, and combining groups into smart groups. Here we demonstrate filtering and interrogating. I'll begin with demonstrating filtering. In part 1, we constructed groups and smart groups using documents. So in part 2, I'll switch to using code groups and code smart groups, so you'll see they work in exactly the same way. The first purpose of filtering is to act on the members of a group or a smart group all at once. I'll open the Code Manager. Here we see a small set of code groups, and in the middle you'll see there's one smart group. This uses an interesting technique. The name of the smart group is Not in a Group, and its formula consists of all the codes not in the first group or the second group or the third group or the fourth group, and so on for all the groups. In this way, as you allocate codes to different code groups, all the ones that remain unallocated will show up in this smart group not in a group. If I click on it, I see all those 18 codes. And I might be at a point in the study where I've decided I would like to read all the quotations I've coded to various codes, which I have not yet decided how to allocate to the code groups which are starting to come together as the main parts of my study. So perhaps I'm going to act on this group of codes all at once by printing out all the quotations for each code. So I can click and ask for a report, and you'll see that it's already set to only print out what I want, in this case the 18 codes that are members of that smart group. So that's what we refer to as acting on a group all at once. A second purpose of filtering is to focus attention on only the members of a group. Perhaps I'm interested in this group support of friends, others, and community. And when I select it, the 4 codes appear in order to let me focus on just those. For example, I may want to read all the quotations in context for each of these codes in turn to refresh myself about the nature of support from this group of people. I can double-click on the code and retrieve the quotations, and then now it's not very convenient to have the windows set up like this. So this is a time that you may want to reorganize the screen. For example, I may want to dock the Code Manager. I can go back and forth between the document I'm looking at and the Code Manager, but that's still not as convenient as moving the Code Manager to a new tab group to the right. In this way, I can see the groups and the code in the group, and I can double-click on a particular code and see its list of quotations and navigate through them one by one. So just as a reminder, you can always set up the screen for a specific purpose. Now I'll refloat the Code Manager in order to see it in a separate window. What we've been looking at so far are examples of what ATLAS.ti refers to as a local filter, or what I call a display filter. This means you can delimit the display of items to only the members of a group, this group or this group, and act on just those members. But the non-members, all the other codes, are not excluded from any other actions you might take anywhere in the ATLAS.ti project. A second kind of filter is called a global filter. This, as it were, hides all the non-members from every action you take in any area of the ATLAS.ti project until you remove the filter. This is a very powerful tool for interrogating your project. When a local or display filter is on, this bar is yellow to let you know the filter is on and you're only seeing some of the items in the list. And down here it lets you know the total number and the number you are seeing in the filtered list. To remove the filter, you click here. But if you click on a group, let's say this one, and put on a global filter, the bar is now colored green. You can just see the green color. I do wish it was a little darker. Anything you now do anywhere in the project now behaves as if these are the only codes in the project. You can also see a local filter at the same time the global filter is on. Maybe we want to see how many of the codes related to death and dying, of which there are 24 in total, are also part of this group on illness narratives. And we see there are 4. And again, either of these filters can be removed by clicking on these X's. This global filtering system applies to all the components that have their own managers, and they all work in the same way. So now we've looked at constructing groups and adding and removing members, combining groups into smart groups, and filtering with groups and smart groups. All that remains is interrogating. This doesn't mean using groups for efficient interrogating of other components, like quotations, codes, or documents, which we certainly do all the time. Interrogating groups means interrogating the groups themselves, in other words, who the members are. Going back to the code manager, we've seen how selecting a group means seeing its members, which is all we mean by interrogating the group. We can also go in the other direction. I'll remove the local filter in order to see all the codes again. And one way to see which groups a code is in is from this column. But if a code is in many groups, it's easier to select the code and then the groups it's in are highlighted. I'm hoping they will make the highlighting a bit darker, but I can just see the highlighted groups are here and here. Finally, there is a visual way to interrogate a group, to see its members, and that is to open a network on the group. If I right-click on this group here, I can open a network, which is a visual view of all its members. We'll go into that more in the component orientation for networks. Note that when I selected this group, this button here to open a network is grayed out, and so that's why I right-clicked on the group instead. The reason the button is grayed out is because this is the code manager. If I select a code, then the button is available to open a network on that code. If I were to open the group manager and then select a code group, then indeed the Open Network button becomes available because this window is dealing with groups. It's all very logical once you get used to it. Well, this completes the orientation to groups and smart groups, and we now invite you to read about another component in Chapter 5 and then watch the associated component orientation video.